suggestion from the podium. You know, some of you have been in urban environments, some of you have been in suburban environments, some of you have been in ghettos, some of you have been in bodegas, some of you have been in many situations. You know what would be interesting for all of you to consider? Renting a mobile home and going and spending a couple days in each community and getting to know the people in that community a little better than just showing up for an event and leaving and going back to so I would encourage that because I think you might find a little bit about the people that you're going to see, a whole lot about yourself. Having said that, third question. Please share your thoughts on project labor agreements and regional municipal accountants. John, I'm going to ask you to go first so we start at this end of the table and then continue to go down.
Oh, John.
And let me read it again.
Yeah,
Please share your thoughts on project labor agreements and regional municipal accountants.
Well, I can tell you that with project labor agreements, where I have been a supporter of union and union projects in this state, and sometimes I've taken heat for that. But the important part of that is the unions are in a situation where they can negotiate on behalf of their employees and their members. And the unions are extremely important for fairness and making sure that people have a living wage and people are treated with respect. That's why I've supported most of the project labor agreements, and I continue to support union leadership and unions in this state and across this nation. And I'm not afraid to say that.
Regional municipal accountants.
I have no problem with that. Why would I have, you know, I'm absolutely, you know, it's a money-saving thing, and I've got no problem with that.
Okay. Let's see what the accountant has to say. Jack? Project labor.
John, first, specific to what you said, and thank you for putting it out there. You know, I've won 7 elections in the state, 2 at the municipal level, 2 at the county level, 3 at the legislative level, term limit myself each time. And in that town, in that county, in that legislative district, Democrats significantly outnumber Republicans each time. And it's because I've always gone places other Republicans don't, for one. And I think that's critically important. Certainly, of any gubernatorial candidate, and I've spent time in our urban centers and in minority communities. And not to be immodest, but that usually ends really, really well. Project labor agreements have their place. My dad was a 38-year union pipe fitter for public service, electric gas, street department, gas distribution. And so prevailing wage, they're in the house. They always are. Prevailing wage and project labor agreements have their place as long as it's not disadvantaging communities of color or minority communities. We talked about, John talked about this before, the threshold. I don't want to know the last time the threshold's been raised on PLAs, but we should certainly look as to when the last time it was raised. We should look at what other states do.
2002. That's not the same.
John, I teed it up, you hit it out of the park, as you always do. 2002, so we're talking about more than 20 years ago. In the last 5 years alone, look what inflation has done. So, and I also always like to look to other states. What are they doing with regard to the threshold? But if we have the research that suggests, if not confirms, that communities, minority-owned businesses are being disadvantaged, we need to revisit the threshold. And so...
regional municipal accountants?
To be completely candid, this CPA doesn't know all that much about RMAs. John, let me say this. If I find out, very much like the threshold, that minority-owned businesses are being disadvantaged, I'll be the first one to stand up and say, we need to address that too.
That's good. Mayor?
Well, the disparity study showed us that we were already being discriminated against, so we don't need another study to tell us what exactly is going on. The problem with the PLA, and I agree with PLAs, first of all. I agree that there should be union wages and that people should be paying prevailing wage. My issue is that, you know, when we separate it sometimes, that means that we are approving people to get paid less for doing the same job as everybody else is doing, right? So I do not want people to work for less money than they would work for in the union, so we have to figure that out. The reason that we're even having this debate is because our pathway into the trade unions is very bleak, right? There's very few of us that are moving into the specialized, particularly specialized trades. When you begin talking about steam fitters, or elevator workers, or heavy heavy machine operators. We're not there. We're there in the laborers, but we're not there on the other side. And then the developers, you know, if you're a developer, you cannot compete with a union job or a bigger developer. So you have to change the threshold. That's number one. Or you can also make larger developers have to get a minority co-developer on their project. If the project is a certain amount of money, they have to get a minority co-developer and pay them a certain percentage or make sure they have equity in the project itself. We just don't want to say we want equity in the long-term deal of the project. So for the life of the project, I should be getting paid as well. These are things that we should begin figuring out immediately, or what we do is we make it difficult for us to excel in this area at all. And that's exactly what's happening. And it's what I deal with every single day with all the buildings that are going up in the city of Newark. You got to fight with whether they're going to be unionized with daily wage, or whether laborers from the city of Newark can get on the job, or whether we have smaller developers that are part of that. So we create minority co-developers in the city of Newark, and it's been working for us, definitely. And in terms of RMA, yes, right. So that also, like, so you to keep track of the money, keep track of the spend, keep track of how you're spending it. That we have to do that immediately and make sure that we're spending the money, because what you're doing is taking care of municipal assets, making sure the municipal assets are taken care of. But we also want to make sure that municipal assets are being spent in the right places with the right people. So we have to make sure we have an eye on that.
I'm sure y'all noticed that Mayor Baracus noticed that Mayor Fuller was gone, and he slid in on that extra time. Very smart.
He said he was going to give it to me.
Yeah, I heard. Sean Spiller.
Thank you. Listen, I think Mayor Palmer really said it in the previous panel, but we have to be careful about fighting amongst ourselves for scraps, right? And I say that because when we're talking about PLAs, and certainly as mayor, I'm really proud that listen, we're going to talk about paying people prevailing wage. Of course, we want people to be able to support themselves. I think labor is a huge piece of fighting for higher standards for so many folks. But I would offer this, right? When I have conversations with so many folks who are trying to do a project, the biggest criticism they come back with is they say, Sean, we can talk about thresholds all we want with PLAs, but you know what? Entities work around it all the time. All they do is divide up contracts, right? You look at our counties, you look at everyone else, they never bid anything above that threshold because all they do is divide up the project into smaller pieces so they never have to be part of that PLA. It's about making sure that the things we ask for as concessions for enacting PLAs are built in to help broaden and advantage communities like ours who have been disadvantaged. So when we talk about the apprentice programs, and I'm sure the Senate President will talk about that in a second, but when you talk about the apprentice programs that so many of the trades utilize, well, we've got to build in as part of our PLAs that no, you can't just say you've got this program. You've got to have benchmarks that you have to hit to include folks from our community, to include folks that are more diversified than you're bringing into the trades right now. Because if you want access to this project, you want to be paid these prevailing wages, as you should ensure that everybody is a part of that opportunity. And what we're getting now is neither. We're getting folks who circumvent PLAs and don't pay the dollars that they should and divide up contracts. And when we do have them, we're getting trades who come in and say, we may have this program and that program, but when you dig down deep and you look at who's being part of that project, it never is someone who looks like us. So we've got to, again, change systems, right? And we do that, again, through good policy. It's having conversations with folks to make sure we're enacting something that makes sense and doesn't miss any of these gaps or holes. But I'm really proud of the fact, I think Mayor Fuller said it before, as mayor in Montclair, we've done these things. I've seen how to do that, and it's important as governor, I would bring that perspective, working with all of you to make sure we're tightening that to a place where we have the opportunities that others are taking advantage of.
See you, sweetie.
And John, I'd invite you to go to a rural community like I represented for years and see how life is with no transportation. Because where I live, I represented the poorest legislative district in the state of New Jersey. And they forget us because they don't see us. That being said, I wrote the law. John Harmon knows that. I thought he put it in here for me to tee it up. I absolutely wrote the law for PLAs. I think PLAs are good. It gives us an opportunity as we do PLAs to bring young people and communities into apprenticeship programs where that one job is creating an opportunity for someone to be an iron worker from 18 to 62 when they retire, to have a career. You know, when you want to look at the numbers, and I know John's stuck on the numbers. We've increased the percentages of requirements to make sure that the job sites look more like the communities. They need to. We're actively in urban areas looking for young people. We need people. I mean, we really do. PLAs only lift up. So John and I have a little bit of a disagreement on this. I respect him. I've worked with him for years. And there's other problems that are keeping employers from getting these jobs. And it's not the PLAs, it's bonding, especially in construction, it's bonding. Thank you.
Bill?
So, a couple things. First of all, when we look at the disparity study and we say, and Senator Sweeney said it, well, I don't care how much time has elapsed, it's still a problem, that's a great point. You could actually go back to the first disparity study that's on the website, which I also read back to 2005.
Bill,
And what I would submit-
you know the question is on
I
fire.
do, it's about PLAs, don't worry, I've got 2 minutes, don't worry.
I just want to make sure.
And when I look at that and I say, okay, we have disparity in this state, but the real disparity is not in how the contracts are awarded, but in the state of our cities and our towns and our communities. Does anybody doubt that the opportunity in a Summit or a Westfield is far greater right now than a Patterson or a Trenton or a Camden or a Newark?
No.
That's where the real disparity is. And we've heard it a couple of times today, talking about the project labor agreements and how we need access to capital and to bring people in. And I'm the only one up here talking about the outsider view, which is we need to empower our local communities through education and access to capital. So let me say this about PLAs. I like one big thing about PLAs, 80% local and 100% legal. And as governor, the first thing I will do is end the sanctuary state on day one, because how many illegals are here taking jobs from the communities in Camden and Patterson and Trenton? So we're gonna end that on day one. And I will say this last point, that when it comes to diversity, equity, and inclusion, you've got a panel full of politicians and a governor that's been in power for 7 years that supports DEI. How is it working out for us? It's not working out. So yes, I will end the current diversity, equity, and inclusion on day one and broaden the definition to empower our suffering communities that are suffering with a lack of education, a lack of job opportunity, a lack of capital, and a lack of safe streets. We need to rebuild our cities in this state, and the way we're going to do it is create opportunity zones, bringing companies in under project labor agreements to hire local, hire legal, and make the investment in the infrastructure across the board so everyone across New Jersey has the same opportunity.
So please,
First of all, thank you for the
I'm
comment.
sorry, I apologize. My mother raised me better.
Well, no, we're good. If you get out of line, I'm gonna correct you.
Yeah,
But I'm gonna do it diplomatically.
yes, sir.
You know what I mean? I'm gonna do it diplomatically. Moving on, our next question. Please share with the audience your thoughts on the utilization of education, occupation, and credit scoring as a proxy for auto insurance premium. John raised that question with the last panel, and I think it was a good question. That'd be nice to hear what each of you have to say about that, and Bill, we're going to come with you coming back up this way.
So I appreciate that, and I had this conversation directly. Eric Poe, some of you know the name, Cure, big insurance company in this state. This is the only company, as I know, that does not use credit score as a way of defining rates. I think it is absolutely discriminatory to use credit scores to evaluate how much you should pay for insurance. So I would like to see that across the board, not the practice of any insurance company in this state.
I actually passed a bill in the Senate to block this from happening, because it is discriminatory. People are being discriminated because of their credit scores, their education. I didn't go to college. Should I have to pay more for insurance if me and you are the same drivers and we both drive well? It's absolute, honestly, this is the BS that pisses people off. You know what I mean? Why are we being punished? Or why are we being discriminated against? Because, am I a worse driver? This is my point. Am I a worse driver because I didn't go to college? Am I a worse driver because I screwed up financially when I was a young guy or something. You know, listen, when I was young, I actually remember missing mortgage payments because I wasn't working. I remember going to the grocery store with my credit card. How many of us had to do that, right? That doesn't mean you're a bad driver. It's got nothing to do with it. So we passed it, and unfortunately, I couldn't get it through the other house. We, together, need to raise our voices to fight this bullshit. Thank you.
So,
It's getting hot and smelly in there. But at the same time, good conversation.
So look, I mean, I think this, not only does something like this, piss people off, it hurts folks. It hurts folks. The folks who are least able, oftentimes, to pay those higher rates, before anything else happens, are being told, you gotta pay more. So I think it's wrong. Of course it's wrong, and we need to change it. But I would offer this, and it again is fundamentally why I'm running for governor. We've relied on folks representing us at so many levels of government, especially as governor, who don't have a similar lived experience to our own, right? Maybe that very wealthy millionaire who swoops in, comes outside of that party structure and wins an election. We've seen it. Or the party-picked person who they tee up and, of course, has to then line up all those patronage positions and everyone they want to put in all these spots. We've seen it over and over and over. And then yet we're surprised that these systems don't work for us. That the decisions that are made don't ever take into account our needs. I'm running to change that because this thing that sounds and seems so obvious to us can't be changed unless we have leaders, including a governor, who understands that it's wrong and has lived that experience much more in line with way more New Jersey residents, and certainly folks in this room. So we've got to change things fundamentally. I hope you've heard it in every single one of my answers, from an easy one like this to all the others. If we're not changing systems, folks, we're just putting another person in place to nibble around the edges, to make minor changes so that we can all sit back here years from now looking at the next study or the next thing and saying, maybe we moved a couple steps this way or a couple steps that way, but we haven't made the fundamental changes that we need to see. It's time to shake it up. Do something different. Invest in somebody who has an experience like your own, somebody who has had these challenges personally, somebody who knows that we've got to change systems from the inside out and not always have the same decision makers in place. So that's why I'm asking for your support, and I hope, again, you've heard it. This is our chance to do something different. Thank you.
I would say yes. I would also add zip codes in that because they also use zip codes to raise people's insurance rates, not just car insurance, home insurance as well, but also the value of people's property gets undermined, and the state knows this. Like, this is not new information. The state knows this, and something needs to be done. So I agree with that. I just want to stop there because I have some other things I would like to respond to. But ultimately, I think that the thing about diversity, equity, and inclusion, so we agree that folks before us have not been doing what they're supposed to do. Hence the disparity study. Nobody is saying that folks have done what they're supposed to do. You can't say diversity, equity, and inclusion didn't work. It was never given an opportunity to work in this place, right? And so this is what we're fighting for. And by the way, in Newark, we have billions of dollars worth of development happening, $300 million expansion in NJPAC, expansion in the museum. There's development happening all over the city. So if you say there's less opportunity in the cities, you'd be wrong, right? McKinsey didn't think so, Mars Wrigley didn't think so, the Dodge Poetry Festival didn't think so, the Sweet 16 that's playing basketball on Thursday, Friday, and Saturday didn't think so. All the businesses that are moving to our city, Black, Brown, and other businesses that are coming into Newark, is proof that the cities is where it's at. And in fact, the children that live in the cities that you named come and hang out in Newark after hours. So we welcome them, and we welcome you to participate in the economy that's growing in Newark, and you can be safe and have a good time at that. You just have to leave the racism at the door.
He's never short on spirit.
Well, you gotta understand, he's got a little bit of preaching. So he knows. Jack?
Specific to your question, it's wrong, it's immoral, it's dangerous, it's profiling. Add in the zip codes, which I agree 100%, and when I'm governor, it'll be illegal, and we'll enforce those laws.
Short and sweet.
I know a lot of smart people who are stupid. And they got all kinds of PhDs, but they got no common sense. So I want to know what else the insurance companies are doing. When I walk down the hall in Trenton, and the insurance lobbyists walk this way, they put their head down, they don't look at me. And that's because I want them to open their books, not just on these issues, but all issues. We get little information from the insurance companies. I'm going to tell you right now, the most powerful lobby in New Jersey are the insurance companies. They have almost all the lobbyists, except for maybe one or two. And they put up all these advertisements, say, you know, we're your mom's insurance company and we love you. Well, anytime I get a piece of paper from the insurance company, I don't understand it. There's a deductible, there's a copay, they have you cite down here and over here, and you gotta check this number. To me, bottom line is, keep it simple for the people. Pay the bill. The insurance company is so busy getting between you and your doctor that we've had to pass 10 or 15 bills that stop this pre-approval situation. So this is just one of the problems. The main problem is we're having a tough time where insureds are not getting paid and it's getting more and more difficult. I have to tell you right now, you know, I'm appointed as an insurance commissioner, a doctor. That's my insurance commissioner. My insurance commissioner is not coming from the insurance industry and then going back into the insurance company. It's coming from the people and going to make sure that the people and the benefits are paid. And there's no reason to check the education. There's no reason to check whether a person making money. Check how the person's driving. How's that, Greg?